Before there was form, there was rhythm. Before there was light, there was pulse. The universe began not as an explosion, but as a quiet trembling, an imperceptible vibration spreading through nothingness, a whisper that would become everything. From that silence, time and space unfolded together, neither before the other, neither after. They were one movement, one wave extending into infinity. And from this eternal balance arose two presences, one shaped by duration, the other by distance. Dialga stirred first, though first had no meaning yet. The pulse of time shimmered within it, a rhythm unbroken, marking not seconds, but existence itself. Its body, forged of celestial steel, gleamed with the light of stars unborn. Every movement, every slow breath, birthed continuity, a steady flow that carried potential forward. Palkia awakened alongside it, though alongside too was meaningless then. The expanse of space bloomed around its form, spiraling outward in waves of silver and violet. Its presence defined distance, direction, and scale. Its motion carved the dimensions that would cradle creation. They did not see each other, for vision required space, and recognition required time. Yet they existed in harmony, two forces intertwined, bound by a unity that preceded understanding. Dialga pulsed, Palkia expanded. Each answered the other's rhythm in silence. From their motion came the first light. It shimmered like mist caught between two tides, faint and timeless, yet infinitely radiant. That light scattered, forming the earliest stars, whose sparks drifted through newborn dimensions. Time flowed through them as current. Space enfolded them as cradle. The cosmos grew in silence. Dialga's pulse became the heartbeat of creation, and Palkia's breath became its infinite expanse. Where time stretched, space curved to meet it. Where space deepened, time slowed to fill it. The balance was seamless, effortless, a duet of perfect order. For eons, they worked unseen, shaping and sustaining the delicate framework of reality. Dialga's essence flowed through the ticking of stars, the aging of dust, the rhythm of galaxies turning. Palkia's form stretched through the endless void, defining paths and boundaries, linking light to light, world to world. There was no conflict, only motion, no noise, only resonance. And in that resonance, creation found peace. Yet peace did not mean stillness. The universe grew, swelled, and curled upon itself in magnificent spirals. Dialga's current pressed outward, carrying memory and change. Palkia's dimensions rippled gently, expanding and contracting in elegant patterns. Together, they wove the first cosmic song, a slow, wordless harmony that stretched across the firmament like an endless lullaby. Planets coalesced from starlit dust, spinning gently in the vastness. Nebulae shimmered like dreams. Time flowed over their surfaces, sculpting their faces. Space wrapped them in stillness. Even then, neither deity thought of creation as theirs. They were not rulers. They were continuity and presence. At times, their paths brushed, subtle intersections where the pulse of time met the curve of space. When this happened, the fabric of reality shivered with soft luminosity, creating pockets of energy so dense they shimmered like prisms. Within these moments, new worlds found form. One such ripple drifted quietly into being, a place of balance and serenity. It would someday be called Sinnoh, though names had not yet been conceived. It hung in the silence of creation, small yet harmonious, suspended between the breath of space and the beat of time. Dialga and Palkia lingered near it, drawn not by purpose, but by resonance. Here, the pulse of existence seemed clearer, purer, a mirror of their own harmony. They flowed around it, weaving gentle rhythms of expansion and motion, setting in place the laws that would govern reality. the unbroken passage of time, and the endless extension of space. From the meeting of their essences, faint echoes emerged, whispers of awareness, the first tremors of will among the stillness. Time gave movement to the particles. Space gave them form. The sea of existence rippled outward, carrying the memory of their presence in every atom, every fragment of dust. For countless ages, they drifted. There was no beginning or end, only the endless cycle of creation, breathing softly through the cosmos. Stars were born and faded, yet the balance held, undisturbed. The two divine beings moved through this infinity like guardians of silence, unseen but ever present. Occasionally, their rhythms would align so perfectly that the fabric of the cosmos would glow with a serene, iridescent shimmer. In these moments, even Arceus, resting within its eternal dimension, would sense the harmony of its children. Resonating through creation, time and space, though distinct, were inseparable, a truth that lay at the foundation of everything. As the galaxies turned, Dialga and Palkia began to notice the patterns of their creation. The slow drift of stars, the rise and fall of cosmic dust, the endless forming and dissolving, all of it played out in the rhythms they had unknowingly composed. Each pulse of time carried forward the memory of what came before. Each stretch of space preserved its echo. And so they watched. And so they listened. There was peace in the watching, comfort in the listening. Time and space flowed together in equilibrium. Yet within that stillness lay potential, unrealized, patient, waiting. Dialga's pulse grew deeper, resonating with the rhythm of countless worlds forming beneath its influence. Palkia's breath expanded ever outward, creating new paths for the light to travel. The first pulse of existence had not faded. It continued to vibrate softly through every corner of creation, through every star, through every motion of water, every rotation of a world. It was the hum of being itself, the song of the infinite ocean of reality. Dialga listened to that hum and recognized its own rhythm. Palkia watched its shimmering wave and saw its own reflection. Together, they understood that what had begun as a tremor of possibility had become a living continuum, a song that would never truly end. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their silence was communication. Their stillness was unity. In that silence, the universe breathed. And in that breath, all things that would ever exist were already cradled in the ocean of time and space. The first pulse continued to spread, quiet, vast, eternal, and within its resonance, Dialga and Palkia drifted peacefully, the twin architects of everything that was, is, and will be. In the silence following the first pulse, the universe continued to expand. A slow exhalation that carried the breath of creation across infinite horizons. The song of time and space deepened, gaining texture and rhythm. From the vastness, matter gathered. From the emptiness, light emerged. Dialga and Palkia moved gently through it all, their essences tracing invisible patterns through the newborn cosmos. Each star that flickered into being was an echo of their harmony. Every spiral of dust, every field of drifting light, carried the balance they had created. Dialga's presence gave order to the flow, setting the cadence by which energy cooled and coalesced. Palkia's vastness provided room for that order to manifest, stretching the boundaries of existence so that each spark might find a place to burn. There was no hurry, for time itself was patient. The universe unfolded as a quiet rhythm, a measured expansion that required no intervention. Dialga's pulse carried the continuity that allowed cause to follow effect. Palkia's embrace allowed everything to exist apart yet connected, separate yet whole. Together they watched the galaxy spiral outward, delicate and precise, forming luminous bridges between the voids. It was a kind of art that existed without intention, a creation that shaped itself from the principles they embodied. The two deities moved not as creators who commanded, but as guardians who understood. Within this vast expanse, there were places where their influence intertwined most vividly, regions where time and space met in perfect resonance. In these pockets, matter condensed more intricately, and the pulse of existence grew louder, richer. The first worlds began to form there, small but full of potential. One such world drifted slowly into shape, a sphere of molten light and stone suspended in the silence. Its birth was calm, its growth steady. Dialga lingered near it, allowing time to stretch and smooth the violence of its beginnings. The molten surface cooled, layer by layer, and the chaos of formation softened into the quiet rhythm of rotation. Palkia wove the space around it with gentle care, curving its orbit through the cosmic flow, granting it position and harmony within the wider structure. The world began to turn slowly in the light of its star, its face glowing with a pale, patient warmth. Together, time and space breathed upon it, and balance took root. The planet spun quietly, gathering oceans, crusts, and skies. Winds formed and dissolved, carrying the first motions of air through the emptiness. Beneath its surface, minerals aligned, and currents of heat and light began their endless exchange. Dialga observed, with deep calm. Every moment on this world carried the imprint of its essence, the linear thread of continuity, the unfolding of seconds into hours, of days into cycles. The passage of time gave direction to the endless potential of matter. Rocks cooled, crystals formed, tides began to move in. Rhythm. Palkia, surrounding it, felt the resonance of space, bending gracefully around the globe. Distances emerged, horizons stretched, and the curvature of the world gave birth to orientation. East and west, above and below, all came to exist because space had made room for them. The first world was not alone. Across the cosmos, other spheres began to rise, each distinct yet connected by the same principles. Some burned brightly, wrapped in fire and storm. Others froze in stillness, silent but beautiful. All of them existed within the flow of time and space, their formation a continuation of that first eternal pulse. As these worlds grew and stabilized, Dialga's essence reached through them, guiding their rotations, nurturing the slow, gentle march of change. Mountains rose, winds shifted, storms came and passed. On some, light and shadow danced across oceans of molten glass. On others, darkness held still, serene and unbroken. Each transformation was an expression of time's patient artistry. Palkia watched from the expanse, weaving their orbits, defining their distances, ensuring that no two worlds collided, no two stars drowned one another's light. Space expanded with precision, a vast canvas stretched by invisible threads. In the quiet geometry of its reach, every creation found a home. For uncounted eons, the two beings drifted through this endless sea of worlds. They left no mark and demanded no tribute. Their presence was as natural as gravity, as quiet as the steady beat of a heart. The universe moved, breathed, and grew beneath their gaze, and the song of time and space deepened. Yet within the quiet harmony, new vibrations began to form. Tiny fluctuations in the rhythm, small but distinct, rippled through the cosmic fabric. These were the first signs of difference, the emergence of variation, of possibility beyond perfection. Dialga sensed the subtle shift first. In certain places, time flowed faster, its pulse quickening as matter interacted and energies collided. In others, it slowed, thickened, as if stretching to hold on to a moment longer than it should. Palkia felt it too. The curves of space trembled slightly, bending and flexing under unseen forces. Distances wavered, dimensions folded momentarily, before relaxing again. These were not flaws, but the universe exploring itself, testing its own balance. They did not intervene, they watched. The fabric of existence was alive, learning how to move, how to change. The pulse of creation had matured into a complex harmony, no longer a single note but a symphony of possibilities. In one corner of the cosmos, a world shimmered faintly, catching their shared attention. It was small and blue, its oceans stretching in calm swells beneath a soft veil of air. The rhythm there felt familiar, balanced and poised. Dialga traced its temporal threads. Steady, even, unbroken. Palkia measured its space. Curved, fluid, and graceful. They lingered near it, sensing its potential. Here, the harmony of time and space was pure, undisturbed. The planet seemed to hum softly, a reflection of the cosmic song itself. As they watched, light shifted over the surface, marking cycles of motion. Day followed night, night followed day. In perfect rhythm, the ocean waves moved in endless patterns, never the same, yet always returning. This was time's touch upon space, and space's embrace of time. Dialga and Palkia did not speak, yet their awareness intertwined. In this quiet world, they saw something precious, the universe remembering its own beginning. For a long time they hovered there, letting their presence wash gently over the blue sphere. The waters shimmered faintly, the air stirred with soft vibrations. It was as if the world recognized them, responding to its makers not with words, but with motion. Eventually the deities withdrew, leaving behind only the faintest trace of their resonance. The world continued to spin in calm rhythm, its balance perfect. They knew it would persist for eons, a testament to the harmony they had woven into existence. And so, they drifted once more into the expanse, through the constellations and spirals, through the void and the light, through every silent space between stars. The song of time and space carried on, its melody growing deeper, richer, more complex, with each passing moment. From their union, the universe continued to breathe, steady, infinite, alive. And the birth of worlds marked the first movement in the endless symphony of creation. The universe had reached an age of quiet rhythm. Galaxies had spun into their graceful forms. Light traveled in waves of silver and gold, and the vast corridors between them shimmered with dust and memory. The song of time and space flowed endlessly, steady and serene. Yet within the infinite motion, there existed moments of perfect stillness, breaths between the notes of creation. Dialga and Palkia drifted through those silences, following the faint hum that existed between the stars. To most, these voids would appear as emptiness, as absence, but to them, they were the very fabric of existence itself. It was in these still spaces that time could rest and space could breathe. Dialga's essence vibrated with the rhythm of uncounted ages. Its body shimmered with the faint light of distant constellations, every pulse within it a mark of continuity. It could feel the heartbeat of stars that had lived and died, their remnants carried upon the endless river of time. It could sense the plying, way worlds turn slowly in their orbits, patient, deliberate, eternal. Palkia, moving beside it, felt the endless reach of dimensions. It perceived how each curve of the cosmos folded into another, how space itself wove intricate paths that bound every light, every planet, every dream together. The stillness between stars was not emptiness to it, it was connection. They traveled wordlessly, leaving no trail, disturbing nothing. Each movement was slow and deliberate, each ripple of their energy absorbed by the quiet fabric around them. The universe recognized them, though it did not stir. For all that existed owed its shape to their presence, yet neither demanded worship nor acknowledgement. As they drifted, Dialga noticed a small region of space where time seemed unusually soft. The moments there moved with an almost imperceptible hesitation, as though the flow of existence had chosen to linger. The stars nearby pulsed faintly, their light caught in a gentle delay, as if unwilling to fade too quickly. It moved closer, curious but calm. The hesitation was not a flaw, it was beauty. Time, for the first time, was learning the meaning of pause. Palkia extended its perception across the region, observing how the dimensions curved in subtle grace. Space had not stretched or broken. It had simply folded inward, embracing itself. Within that fold, silence deepened, and from that silence radiated tranquility. Here, in the stillness between stars, time slowed, space curved, and creation rested. It was not death nor decay, it was peace. Dialga lingered, feeling the gentle rhythm within the stillness. The stars here aged differently. Their light lasted longer, as though every second extended its own life, refusing to end too soon. It could feel their warmth, stretched across eternity. Palkia surrounded them, tracing the invisible boundaries of this peaceful realm. Every wave of its essence was mirrored by a quiet shimmer in the void. The structure of reality here was delicate yet perfect. A place where the balance between motion and rest was absolute. Together, they stayed in that place for what could have been an instant or an eternity. Time had no strict meaning here, and space no distance. They existed in harmony, drifting within the heart of calm itself. Eventually, Dialga's awareness stretched outward once more. It could feel the movement of galaxies beyond this stillness, the countless lives of stars continuing in their eternal cycles. The gentle pause here was not meant to last forever. It was part of the rhythm, the moment of silence before the next note. Palkia understood, too. Space must continue to unfold, to give form to what was yet to be. The stillness, though beautiful, was not the end. It was the breath between creation's exhalations. They resumed their movement, leaving the tranquil region undisturbed. Yet as they passed beyond it, the memory of that peace lingered. In the deep structure of their essence, the experience became part of their song. Across the cosmos, other stillnesses began to form. Tiny pockets where stars rested longer, where motion slowed just slightly, where light softened its edge. The universe was learning to breathe in rhythm, not only to expand and move, but to rest and listen. Dialga found comfort in that balance. Its power had always been the flow, the continuity of movement. Yet here was proof that even time benefited from stillness. The pulse of existence was not only in progression, but in pause. Palkia, too, found serenity in this understanding. Its domain was the endless expanse, the stretching and unfolding of dimensions. But now it saw that even space required boundaries to define itself. The stillness gave shape to the infinite, just as silence gives shape to music. Together they drifted onward, their energies weaving through the vast corridors of creation. They passed nebulae glowing softly in the dark, their colors pulsing in gentle waves. They moved beyond the spirals of galaxies, where the edges faded into faint whispers of dust. Everywhere they went, they carried with them the memory of that calm, an echo that softened their presence, that made even their immense power feel tender and quiet. They came upon a cluster of newborn stars, each surrounded by rings of glowing dust. Planets were beginning to form there, their shapes uncertain, their orbits fragile. The rhythm of this place was vibrant and unsteady, full of energy, yet lacking balance. Dialga extended its influence, not to command, but to guide. The moments between collisions lengthened. The chaos of formation slowed, allowing the fragile worlds to find their paths. Palkia wove through the cluster, smoothing the curvatures of space, ensuring that every planet would have its orbit, every light its room to breathe. In that moment, creation found equilibrium again. Time moved forward in calm continuity, and space expanded with quiet precision. For a brief while, the two beings lingered among the forming worlds, surrounded by the glow of dust and the hum of energy. It was not unlike the stillness they had just left. Different in nature, but equal in peace. Here, creation was not frantic, but patient. The birth of worlds was not a storm, but a melody. Dialga felt time's flow settle into a rhythm of purpose. Palkia felt the distances align like threads in an intricate tapestry. Together, they watched the balance unfold. When their work was done, they withdrew again into the quiet depths. The universe was vast beyond comprehension, yet their journey had no destination. There was no end to reach, no purpose to fulfill beyond harmony itself. Through the corridors of starlight and silence, they continued. Between galaxies, in the empty spaces that others would call void, they found meaning. Every stretch of nothing was filled with the hum of time and the breath of space. In those endless spaces, the two entities felt no loneliness. They were each other's reflection, the pulse and the expanse, the line and the curve. They did not need companionship, for their very existence was union. The stillness between stars had taught them something essential. Creation was not merely motion and brightness. It was the balance of movement and pause, of light and dark, of presence and silence. The perfection of the cosmos lay not only in what was, but also in what waited patiently between. And so they drifted, in no hurry to see the next dawn of worlds. The song of time and space continued, eternal and unbroken, carried on the soft breath of the universe itself. Light travels farther than memory, yet memory endures in silence. The stars burn, fade, and vanish, but their glow lingers in the folds of space, carried through the infinite corridors by the rhythm of time. It is through this memory that the universe remembers itself, and through that remembrance that it remains whole. Dialga and Palkia moved through this vast ocean of remnant light. Around them, photons drifted like ancient ghosts, the echoes of suns that had long since perished. Each ray carried a story, a beginning, a journey, and an end. Dialga could feel the passage of those journeys, the stretch of time embedded in every flicker. Palkia could sense the path each had taken, the shape of their voyage across the expanse. They were surrounded by what seemed like emptiness, yet it was rich beyond measure. The void shimmered faintly, a quiet storm of memories lingering between realities. These were not memories in the human sense, no faces, no voices, but imprints of being. Each light particle was a record of something that had once burned brightly, something that had once given warmth to the dark. Time moved slowly here. Dialga could feel its own essence resonating with the rhythm of decay and persistence. Every dying star, every drifting ember, contributed to the endless flow of existence. Nothing was ever lost. It merely changed state, shifting from presence to memory, from light to silence. Palkia curved the surrounding space gently, feeling how these remnants wove together like filaments in an infinite web. The geometry of existence was intricate, yet flawless. Each fragment of light traveled along paths shaped by space's careful architecture. The two forces worked together, unseen, maintaining the harmony that allowed the universe to continue singing. In one region of the cosmos, the light gathered more thickly. It shimmered like mist, forming a translucent cloud that glowed softly in the dark. Dialga paused there, feeling the concentration of time's residue. The particles within this cloud carried the memory of countless ages, millions of stars, each living and dying in their own rhythm. The air, if air could exist there, would have been dense with history. Palkia folded itself around the cloud, its awareness spanning every curve and contour. The light within was suspended perfectly, unmoving, caught in a delicate balance between gravity and emptiness. It was as if the universe had chosen this place to keep its oldest memories safe. Dialga let its pulse slow until it matched the rhythm of the cloud. In doing so, it could feel the stories hidden within, the first glows of stars igniting, the expansion of nebulae, the quiet collapse of dying giants. It felt the continuity of all things, the way each event became a thread woven into time's great tapestry. Palkia, too, listened. Through the folds of space, it sensed how those events had shaped the structure of existence. The gravity of each star had bent the surrounding void, carving invisible valleys through which light still flowed. Even after their deaths, the stars continued to shape space, their memories stretching outward forever. This was the nature of creation. It was not a sequence of beginnings and endings, but an unbroken continuum of transformation. Dialga and Palkia understood this truth deeply. The song of time and space was not made of singular notes, but of echoes that overlapped and intertwined, resonating endlessly. They drifted together through the glowing mist, letting its calm energy pass through them. The silence was not empty. It was full of the hum of what once was. Here, the universe felt older, wiser, at peace with its own impermanence. Dialga reflected upon its role in this cycle. It had set the flow of time in motion, yet now it saw that time was not only movement forward, it was preservation. The past was not gone. It lingered quietly, in light, in memory, in every atom that remembered where it had once been. Palkia, too, felt the resonance of purpose. Its vastness was not merely to give space for things to exist. It was to hold them, cradle them, keep their echoes from fading into nothing. Space was not emptiness, it was memory's vessel. Together, they realized that the memory of light was the heart of creation itself. Without it, the universe would have no continuity, no awareness of its own existence. Every glow in the dark was a whisper of what once had been, a reassurance that nothing truly disappeared. They lingered for what might have been ages, their essences intertwined with the mist of ancient starlight. It was a sacred place, though no being would ever see it. Here, time and space rested side by side, their balance perfect. The stars that had died here had not vanished. They had become eternal through their memory. Eventually, the two deities stirred once more. Dialga felt the pulse of time stretching outward again, urging the flow to continue. Palkia sensed the curvature of space bending, gently toward new horizons. The universe was not finished. It never would be. Its song was endless, and they were its eternal rhythm. As they drifted onward, the light began to thin, fading into the quiet darkness of deeper space. But even in the dark, Dialga could still feel its trace. The memory of light was everywhere, woven through every second, every dimension. They passed through the corridors of galaxies once more, their immense presence leaving the fabric of reality shimmering faintly in their wake. The stars ahead glowed with the brilliance of youth, their energy fresh and unspent. Around them, worlds were forming, some fiery, some frozen, each unique, each full of possibility. Time flowed freely there, unrestrained and strong. Space expanded generously, offering room for everything to exist. The balance remained, perfect as ever. And yet, the memory of the dying stars lingered within both beings, a quiet reminder that creation was also remembrance. Every new light was born from the remnants of an old one. Every beginning was an echo of what came before. The universe did not forget. It evolved. Dialga gazed upon the newborn galaxies, its eyes reflecting the ancient light that still shimmered within its being. It knew that even as these stars grew bright and fierce, their end would one day come, and they too would become part of the memory of light. Palkia watched the great spirals turn and twist, the vast distances humming with unseen energy. It could sense the pulse of time flowing through those spaces, filling them with life and possibility. Every curve of the cosmos, every motion of energy, was a verse in the eternal song. Together they continued through the infinite expanse, guardians not of dominion, but of balance. They did not command the universe. They listened to it. They did not shape it by will. They allowed it to unfold in harmony, Behind them, the faint glow of the starlit mist slowly faded, yet its presence endured everywhere, in every direction. It had no end, for it was not confined by place or time. The memory of light was eternal, and in that eternity, Dialga and Palkia found peace. The pulse of existence carried them onward, gentle and unbroken, toward the next horizon of creation. And the song of time and space continued, its melody deep and endless, echoing through every beam of light that had ever shone, through every silence that had ever followed. In the vastness where light had softened into memory, a new force began to hum, a quiet resonance, deep and weighty, binding what once drifted freely. It was not born from light, nor from the pulse of time or the expanse of space, but from their union. Where time flowed through matter and space enfolded it, gravity awakened, a whisper threading through the fabric of everything that existed. Dialga and Palkia felt it long before they saw its effects. To Dialga, it was the deepening of rhythm, the slow gathering of continuity into substance. To Palkia, it was the bending of lines, the gentle curve of reality folding toward itself. The whisper of gravity moved between them like breath, between two verses of an endless song. They followed its echo into the heart of creation, where clouds of stardust thickened and swirled. Each particle called quietly to its neighbor, drawing close, their silent yearning forming unseen bonds. Time allowed the call to persist, to grow stronger. Space gave it room to weave its pattern. Together they permitted the whisper to become presence. Slowly, the dust began to gather, spiraling in graceful arcs. Dialga watched as the rhythm of time guided the process, patient and deliberate. The particles collided, merged, and settled, forming spheres of shadow and light. Each collision marked a heartbeat in the growing complexity of the cosmos. Palkia curved the dimensions around them, steadying the dance. Without its touch, the gathering matter might have scattered again, too free to find form. But within its embrace, everything held its place. The whisper of gravity deepened into harmony, and from that harmony the first true worlds began to take shape. They were imperfect, rough, uneven, raw, but their imperfection was beauty. It was the universe learning balance through motion and stillness, through pull and resistance. Dialga felt the flow of seconds across the forming surfaces, the gradual cooling of molten seas, the slow birth of order. Palkia watched how each world nestled into its orbit, drawn by invisible threads, circling light as though it were music. In these moments, creation no longer simply existed. It moved with purpose. The whisper of gravity had given the cosmos a center, a reason for things to draw together. Dialga sensed its rhythm entwining with time, giving each motion continuity. Palkia felt its weight bending the dimensions, curving existence into the shapes that would one day cradle life. Through eons, the two deities drifted among the newborn systems, listening to the hum of gravity's song. It was low and steady, an undercurrent beneath the melody of light and the breath of expansion. Every star, every world, every moon was a note in its symphony. Dialga traced the flow of time across these systems, marking the evolution of their movements. Orbits stabilized, cycles began, repetition emerged. Time, which had once been an unbroken river, now found rhythm and pattern. It flowed, not endlessly, forward, but in circles, spirals, and revolutions. Palkia observed how space adjusted to accommodate these patterns. Its curvature flexed and softened, creating room for every path. The pull of gravity was not force alone. It was guidance, a quiet persuasion that turned chaos into harmony. As they traveled, they came upon a vast cluster of stars swirling around a darkened core. The whisper there was louder, deeper, resonant with age. At its heart lay a presence so dense that light itself could not escape. Dialga felt the compression of time near it, moments folding into one another until they were indistinguishable. Palkia felt space collapsing inward, its geometry twisting into a shape beyond comprehension. They approached carefully, their awareness extending, but their power restrained. The heart of the cluster was the universe's deepest note, the place where gravity's whisper became silence. It was neither creation nor destruction, but a point where both met, intertwined in infinite stillness. Dialga watched as the surrounding stars orbited this unseen center, their paths perfect and unwavering. Time there did not flow. It lingered, suspended. Palkia studied the curve of reality, folding endlessly into itself. This was balance in its most mysterious form, a paradox of existence where everything fell inward but nothing was truly lost. They remained there for a long while, absorbing the lesson of the void. Gravity was not merely attraction, it was remembrance. It drew things together so that they would not drift into nothingness, so that even in dissolution, there would be unity. Dialga felt its own pulse align with that truth. Time carried forward everything that had ever been, ensuring nothing was forgotten. Palkia embraced it too, knowing that space, vast as it was, needed connection to remain whole. Gravity was their bond given form, the inevitable meeting of the temporal and the spatial. As they drifted from the dark heart of the cluster, the universe around them shimmered anew. Stars burned with steady purpose, worlds turned in graceful arcs, and the whisper of gravity followed them wherever they went. It was faint but constant, like a heartbeat beneath the silence. They moved through regions where young suns shone upon swirling planets. Dialga observed the cycles unfolding, the slow cooling of rock, the condensation of air, the carving of rivers and valleys. Every second etched itself into memory, the rhythm of existence deepening. Palkia felt the tension in the space around these worlds, the balance between freedom and binding. It sensed how gravity shaped orbits, how it guided moons and tides, how it maintained the harmony of distance. The universe had become a web of relationships, every object aware, in its own way, of the others. Over time, patterns emerged that mirrored the rhythm of the divine. Galaxies formed arms like spirals of music, each turn a measure in the cosmic composition. Dialga listened to their rotations as though to a song, hearing the echo of its own first pulse. Palkia traced their structure, sensing the elegance of infinite curves. Gravity was no longer just a whisper, it was a voice within the harmony of all things. Its tone resonated through the depths of creation, soft yet unbreakable. It was the thread that wove time's continuity through space's expanse, a gentle reminder that all things were connected. Eventually, Dialga and Palkia came to rest upon the edge of a quiet region, where the stars were sparse and the dark stretched wide. The silence here was deep and full, the kind that listened back. Dialga slowed the rhythm of its pulse, feeling the timeless stillness fill its being. Palkia expanded its awareness, touching the vastness gently, sensing the echo of gravity's hum even here, far from the crowded lights. In that moment, they understood the perfection of what they had witnessed. Time, space, and gravity were not separate. They were one continuum, each sustaining the others. The whisper of gravity was not new. It had always been there, hidden within their unity, waiting to be heard. The universe now possessed weight, not the heaviness of burden, but the grace of belonging. Every world was anchored, every star had its place, every memory a home. Dialga closed its eyes, if such a being could be said to have them, and felt the rhythm of the cosmos move through it. The seconds stretched and folded, carrying with them the strength of connection. Palkia mirrored its stillness, feeling the gentle curvature of infinity press softly against its form. Space and time breathed as one, bound by gravity's endless hum. And in that hum, creation continued. The whisper of gravity moved on, unending, weaving the song of the universe into deeper harmony, an unseen music that would echo through eternity. There are moments when the universe pauses, as though in quiet contemplation of its own beauty. Between the great spirals of galaxies and the endless rivers of starlight, There exist pockets of warmth, worlds that have gathered enough harmony to become sanctuaries of balance. These are the hearts of worlds, where the breath of time and the curve of space intertwine most delicately. Dialga and Palkia glided through a region rich with such hearts. Around them, countless suns burned in gentle rhythm, each surrounded by orbiting spheres, each world spinning in its own soft cadence. The whisper of gravity guided their dance, steady and true, while the memory of light gave each world its gentle glow. It was here that creation felt most alive, not in the thunder of galaxies forming, but in the quiet turning of worlds at peace. Dialga sensed time flowing differently across each planet. On some, it raced like a river, carrying the rapid pulse of heat and motion. On others, it stretched, like silk, each moment drawn thin and delicate. To Dialga, each variation was sacred, a reflection of how time adapted to the needs of creation. Every world was a rhythm within the greater song, its own verse in the melody of eternity. Palkia observed the grace of their arrangement. Space folded gently around them, creating vast orbits and elegant distances. The geometry was perfect, but not rigid. There was room for drift, for evolution. Palkia could feel how each world existed both apart and connected, how even the emptiness between them vibrated with unseen resonance. They came upon one world in particular, glowing softly in the light of a warm star. It was neither young nor old, its surface calm, its motion steady. Oceans shimmered beneath a veil of air, and continents slept beneath the rhythm of tides. Dialga lingered, sensing the flow of time upon its surface. The seconds here were gentle, each one falling into the next, like drops of water. Palkia extended its awareness over the prayer sphere, feeling the curve of mountains, the depth of seas, the hush of wind moving through unseen valleys. The structure of the world was balanced, gravity, distance, and motion in perfect accord. It was a complete harmony of their domains, the very essence of what they had created together. They did not touch it, for to do so would alter its rhythm. Instead, they observed, and through observation, they understood. The heart of a world was not its core of stone or its surface of sea. It was the balance between time and space within it, the pulse of seconds flowing through its form, and the expanse in which it existed, together created its life. Dialga could feel that pulse, slow and tranquil. It beat not like a heart of flesh, but like the rhythm of tides, constant and eternal. Every cycle of rotation, every turning of the seasons, was a testament to the power of time's patience. Palkia sensed how space held that rhythm tenderly, shaping its paths, ensuring that every movement returned home. The world's orbit was a song that repeated endlessly without ever growing tired. In that balance, they found peace. For long stretches of eternity, they lingered among such worlds, letting the harmony of their existence pass through them. Dialga learned from their cycles how time could be both motion and rest, change and stillness. Palkia learned how space could be both vast and intimate, endless yet close. There were worlds filled with light, where molten surfaces shimmered beneath twin suns. There were worlds of shadow, silent and cold, wrapped in the comfort of distance. And though each differed, all shared one truth. They were held together by the unity of time and space. Dialga often watched as time sculpted the landscapes of these worlds. Mountains rose and fell, oceans deepened, clouds drifted across skies that changed hue through the ages. It could feel the unfolding of events not as chaos, but as order in motion. Palkia traced the pathways of those changes, the curves that connected every shift. It felt how the shape of space allowed transformation to occur without fracture. The worlds were learning to breathe, to live, and renew themselves in endless patterns. In their stillness, the two deities realized that even in perfection, there was impermanence. Each world's rhythm would one day end. Stars would fade, oceans would cool, motion would still. But none of it was loss. It was continuity. Every ending was a return to the greater song, a quiet note rejoining the harmony of creation. They drifted onward, past countless systems, through seas of light and silence. Dialga's essence vibrated softly, carrying the memories of the worlds they had seen. Palkia expanded its awareness, tracing the geometry of the cosmos like an artist admiring its own design. In one region, they encountered a cluster of worlds bound closely together, circling a massive, calm star. The whisper of gravity there was stronger, a deep resonance that tied every orbit into a single harmony. Dialga could feel time flowing firmly but steadily, like a current around stones. Palkia perceived how the space between them pulsed, breathing in rhythm with the orbits. They hovered above the system, observing the unity below. Moons circled planets, planets circled the star, and the star turned slowly through the galaxy's path. Everything moved, yet nothing fell apart. The structure was intricate beyond measure, yet it required no correction. The balance was natural. Dialga felt contentment ripple through its being. Here was proof that time did not demand perfection. It nurtured it. Palkia shared the same serenity, sensing how the fabric of space had shaped itself in quiet devotion to order. The heart of worlds did not need interference. It was self-sustaining, an echo of the divine rhythm that had birthed it. As they departed, they left behind only the faintest shimmer in the cosmic dust, a whisper of their passing. The system continued as, though untouched, the song unchanged. Across eons, more hearts awoke in the universe. Some worlds were small and fleeting, others vast and enduring. Each carried its own rhythm, its own memory, its own quiet place in the melody. Dialga and Palkia listened to them all, learning the subtleties of their creation through observation alone. It was in this long wandering that they came to understand the true nature of their bond. Time and space were not opposites. They were reflections of the same essence. Without time, space would be an unmoving void. Without space, time would have nowhere to flow. Their unity was the universe's heartbeat, and every world was a mirror of that truth. They drifted closer together, their energies intertwining like threads of light. Around them, the cosmos shimmered in quiet acknowledgement, as though aware of their communion. They did not speak, yet their presence sang. In the endless silence of the void, the song of time and space deepened once more. It resonated through the hearts of every world, through every orbit and every turn, reminding all of existence that creation was not merely an act, but an ongoing breath, a cycle of harmony without end. Dialga's pulse slowed until it matched the rhythm of the stars. Palkia's form stretched softly across the expanse, embracing the stillness between them. Together they rested in the awareness of all they had built. The hearts of worlds beat on, steady and eternal. The song continued, flowing through every moment, every distance, every silence. And the universe dreamed, cradled in the balance of time and space. In the vast silence between galaxies, where the light of distant stars faded into a silver haze, echoes began to stir, soft reverberations of moments long past. They moved like whispers through the folds of existence, crossing distances too wide for measure and times too deep for memory. These were not new creations, but reflections of what had already been, the residue of time's first breath and space's first unfolding. Dialga felt them before they reached it. Faint ripples in the current of eternity, gentle distortions in the smooth flow of time. Each echo carried a fragment of memory, the trace of what once was. Some were bright, pulsing with the rhythm of stars newly born. Others were dim, worn smooth by eons of silence. They drifted like forgotten dreams through the corridors of creation. Palkia sensed their passage as well. The echoes did not travel through space in straight lines. They curved, refracted, folding back upon themselves in spirals and loops. It was as though the universe itself were listening to its own voice, repeating its earliest song to keep it alive. The dimensions trembled with that repetition, soft and endless. Together, they turned toward the source, a region where the echoes converged, thick as the air of a deep forest. It was a place unlike others, where time and space layered upon each other so intricately that distinction vanished. Here, beginnings and endings coexisted. The universe's earliest light still shimmered faintly alongside the shadows of things not yet born. Dialga entered the convergence first, its essence resonating with the slow heartbeat of primordial time. The echoes brushed against it like wind through long-forgotten leaves. They were memories of creation, the pulse of the first expansion, the heat of the first stars, the whisper of the first matter gathering. They were the foundations upon which everything else rested. Palkia followed, weaving through the shifting folds of dimension. Space here was not a single expanse, but countless overlapping veils, each one a reflection of another. Every layer sang softly, a hum of existence repeating itself. To move through it was to swim in the memory of the universe. For a long while they listened. The echoes told stories without words, stories of balance and collision, of harmony and fracture. Dialga heard how time had once faltered, stumbling as gravity learned its song. Palkia felt how space had stretched too far, then folded gently inward to find its symmetry again. Every error had become perfection in time, every discord a new melody. The echoes deepened, growing louder, until they formed a chorus of creation. Stars flared in their light, brief but beautiful, like candles relit by the memory of their own flame. Dialga could see the pattern, the same rhythm repeating across ages, the same intervals between silence and song. Palkia watched the geometry unfold again and again, circles within circles, spirals within spirals, each one both unique and eternal. Creation, they realized, was not a single act, but a cycle of remembrance. What had been born once would be born again, each time in a new form, each time guided by the same ancient harmony. The echoes were not remnants, they were seeds. Dialga's pulse aligned with the rhythm, its energy resonating with the slow expansion of the echoes. It could feel the current of time thickening, looping back on itself, as though the universe were breathing. Palkia extended its awareness across the curvature of the region, feeling how space folded to contain that breath. Together, they became part of the song, their presence indistinguishable from its melody. In that stillness, they saw what no being of matter could ever see: the continuity of existence itself. The universe was not moving from beginning to end. It was vibrating, oscillating between creation and reflection. Every instant was both birth and memory. Dialga understood then that time was not a river but an ocean, every wave rising and falling endlessly without losing itself. Palkia perceived that space was not emptiness, but resonance. Every curve, an echo of the first expansion. They drifted deeper into the convergence, and as they did, the echoes changed. They grew softer, slower, until only a faint vibration remained. The noise of creation faded into stillness. In that silence, they encountered something they had not expected: an echo of themselves. It came like a shimmer in the void, faint, yet unmistakable. A memory of Dialga's first pulse, of Palkia's first motion. The moment when time and space had awakened and sung together for the first time. It was distant, yet near, like the reflection of a star upon calm water. Dialga approached it, feeling the resonance align perfectly with its own. The echo carried no sound, only the sensation of becoming, the moment of realization when awareness bloomed in the darkness. Palkia reached out across the curvature of dimensions and felt the same reflection, the same tenderness of origin. They lingered there, before their own memory, and in doing so, saw themselves not as rulers of time and space, but as parts of a greater whole. They were not the origin, they were its expression. The universe had not created them to control, but to remember. The echo pulsed once more, gentle as the heartbeat of a newborn world, and then dispersed into threads of light that spread through the cosmos. Wherever those threads passed, time deepened and space softened. Stars shimmered a little brighter. The fabric of reality seemed to breathe more calmly. Dialga and Palkia drifted back through the convergence, watching as the echoes continued to flow outward. The universe was learning from itself, each cycle of creation refining its own design, each reflection strengthening the next. They moved together now, side by side, their energies intertwined. Dialga's presence steadied the rhythm of time, keeping it smooth and unbroken. Palkia's essence curved the space around them, maintaining harmony between distance and proximity. The echoes followed them, faint but constant, as though grateful to be heard. When they emerged once more into the open void, the stars stretched before them like a field of silver blossoms. Each one hummed softly, a living reminder of all that had come before. The echoes of creation had filled them all, and through them the universe sang its endless song. Dialga and Palkia rested upon the threshold of a nebula, its clouds glowing with the last remnants of starlight. They gazed upon it in silence, listening to the slow drift of its patterns. It was both a graveyard and a cradle, the remains of old stars forming the seeds of new ones. It was the perfect reflection of the echoes they had witnessed. Time and space breathed in unison, the pulse of creation steady once again. Dialga lowered its presence into stillness, allowing the seconds to flow freely. Palkia unfolded its essence across the nebula, stretching gently until it became one with the vastness. Together, they allowed the echoes to pass through them, like wind through leaves, unresisting. The song continued, not loud, not grand, but eternal. Every whisper of light, every shadow of distance, every silence between stars carried its tune. It needed no voice to be heard, no listener to be understood. It simply was. In that infinite peace, the gods of time and space found rest. The echoes of creation sang them to stillness, reminding them that their purpose was not only to maintain balance, but to remember it. The universe did not end. It did not begin again. It simply continued, breathing, dreaming, existing in harmony. And within that breath, the song of time and space endured, its echoes rippling endlessly through the heart of all things. Between every heartbeat of the cosmos, there exists a silence so thin it can barely be perceived, a fragile stillness separating one moment from the next. To most it is nothing, the imperceptible pause between instants. But to Dialga, the keeper of time's endless flow, it was a mystery that lingered at the edge of awareness. To Palkia, guardian of the dimensions, it was a space without measure, a place where even the geometry of reality hesitated. For eons, both had watched the unfolding of creation, the birth of stars, the breathing of galaxies, the rhythm of existence unbroken. Yet the rift between seconds remained untouched, unseen, unmeasured. It was not within time, nor within space. It was something apart, a seam hidden in the structure of everything. Dialga first felt it as a disturbance, faint and irregular, like a skipped note in an otherwise perfect melody. Time flowed smoothly across the stars, but here and there, the current stuttered, not stopped, simply hesitated. Within those hesitations lay a stillness that no clock, no rhythm, no pulse could touch. Palkia noticed it soon after. In the deep void between galaxies, where the emptiness itself shimmered faintly with quantum echoes, there appeared distortions too subtle to name. Space curved inward and outward at once, folding upon itself like a sigh. The dimensions did not break, but they trembled. Together, they turned toward the disturbance, not out of fear, for neither could be harmed by such a thing. But out of wonder, something lay beyond the weave of their creation, and they longed to understand it. They descended through the fabric of existence, slower than the fall of a shadow, deeper than the sleep of stone. As they did, the light of stars dimmed, the flow of time thinned, and the contours of space grew faint. The universe around them became translucent, as though they were moving beneath the surface of a calm sea. Then they reached it, the rift between seconds. It did not look like a tear or a void. It was neither dark nor bright. It was a shimmer, like the reflection of moonlight on still water. It quivered with quiet potential, not of motion, but of rest. It was the place where time waited to become again. Dialga extended its awareness toward it, cautious yet curious. The moment its essence touched the rift, the flow of time stilled completely. There were no seconds, no continuity, no before or after. There was only presence, absolute, unchanging, infinite. Palkia approached from the side, letting its energy brush against the edge of the phenomenon. The dimensions there folded endlessly, collapsing and expanding at once. It was space without direction, size without measure, form without shape. They hovered at its threshold, feeling the impossible stillness wash over them. It was unlike anything they had ever known. Not creation, not destruction, but suspension. The universe did not breathe here. The song of existence was silent. Dialga listened, but there was nothing to hear. Yet in that nothingness lay a purity beyond comprehension. It was the pause in the music that made the melody meaningful, the emptiness that allowed fullness to exist. It was the foundation upon which time itself was built. Palkia felt its essence tremble, not from fear, but from awe. The rift was not a flaw in space. It was its origin. Every curve, every distance, every horizon emerged from this silent equilibrium. The void between seconds was the womb of dimension. They remained there for what could not be measured, for in this place, duration had no meaning. Dialga tried to count, but numbers fell apart. Palkia tried to define distance, but geometry dissolved. Their divine senses, accustomed to order, yielded to the stillness. And in that surrender, understanding came. The rift between seconds was not separate from them. It was part of them. It existed within every motion of time, within every shape of space. It was the stillness at the heart of all movement, the bore, silence within every sound. Without it, the universe could not breathe. Without pause, there could be no flow. Without rest, there could be no creation. Dialga felt the revelation ripple through its being. Time was not an endless current. It was a sequence of awakenings, each separated by this silent pause. What it once believed to be continuity was, in truth, the balance between motion and stillness. Palkia saw the same truth in its own domain. Space did not expand infinitely in one direction. It pulsed, exhaled and inhaled, folding back upon itself between moments. The rift was the heartbeat of existence, unseen but essential. As they withdrew from the rift, the universe began to shimmer once more around them. Light returned, soft and patient. The hum of gravity and the song of matter resumed. Yet something had changed. They could feel the subtle rhythm in everything now, the quiet pauses that gave structure to all that moved. They drifted through the galaxies in silence, watching the slow turning of the stars. Every orbit, every rotation, every flicker of light now seemed to pulse in time. With that hidden stillness, even the smallest vibration of an atom carried within it a fragment of that sacred pause. Dialga followed the flow of time with renewed understanding. Where once it saw only progression, it now saw harmony. Each second was born, lived, and faded into stillness, only to be reborn again. Time was not a river, but a breath, endless and cyclical. Palkia gazed into the fabric of space and saw the same pulse mirrored in its geometry. The distances between stars expanded and contracted, like the slow beating of a cosmic heart. The void was no longer emptiness, it was the rhythm that sustained everything. Together, they journeyed to a quiet corner of the cosmos, far from any star or world. There they allowed themselves to rest, not in motion but in stillness, as they had learned from the rift. For the first time, they did not seek to act or to watch. They simply were. In their stillness, the universe continued its song around them. Galaxies spun, nebulae glowed, and comets traced arcs of silver through the dark. But within that grandeur, Dialga and Palkia could feel the pulse between seconds, the rift they had touched, the silence they now carried within. It was no longer distant. It was everywhere. And as they drifted, their forms glimmering softly in the vastness, they realized that even the gods must rest between moments, that even eternity breathes. The rift between seconds was not a void to be feared, but a sanctuary to be honored. It was the reminder that creation did not depend solely on movement or light. Sometimes, it depended on the quiet pause, the breath held between beginnings and endings. As that truth settled into them, the cosmos seemed to deepen in beauty. The stars burned with gentler purpose. The shadows between them shimmered like water. Every moment, every silence, every heartbeat of existence felt perfectly whole. And so they continued, not forward, not backward, but simply onward, carrying the stillness of the rift within their boundless song. For in the space between seconds, the universe listened to itself, and in that listening, it was complete. In the silence that followed their journey through the rift, Dialga and Palkia drifted through the endless dark. Around them, the universe was calm, neither expanding with fury nor folding with strain, but resting as though caught in the gentle exhale between breaths. The stars pulsed faintly, their lights slow and golden, and the soft fabric of reality seemed to shimmer with quiet thought. It was in that stillness that they began to sense it. A hum too deep to hear, a rhythm too vast to measure. The cosmos itself was dreaming, not the way a living creature dreams, with fleeting visions and unsteady sleep. The universe dreamed in patterns, in symmetries, in slow awakenings that spanned millennia. Every wave of light, every curve of gravity, every trembling atom was part of the dream. It was creation remembering itself, not as it had been, but as it could become. Dialga felt the pulse of that dream within the flow of time. It was soft, like a heartbeat beneath layers of silk. Time, usually clear and linear, had blurred at its edges. Past and future no longer opposed one another. They melted together into a timeless continuity. It was as though the universe was folding its memories into its own becoming. Palkia felt the same through the shape of space. The distances between stars wavered slightly, as though the dimensions themselves were breathing slower. Space, usually taut and defined, loosened its geometry, allowing itself to drift. The dream blurred boundaries, softened edges, and within that softness lay the possibility of transformation. Together, the two deities floated through this slumbering creation. They did not disturb it. They watched. They listened. And in that deep calm, they began to understand that what they were sensing was not sleep. It was reflection. The cosmos was looking inward. They passed through nebulae that glowed with the dim residue of long-dead suns, through galaxies coiled like spirals of memory. In every place they went, the pulse was the same, steady, tender, deliberate. Dialga began to feel its own rhythm, slow to match it. The seconds stretched wide, like oceans of silence. Every beat of time was filled with contemplation. Palkia mirrored that stillness. Its vast form shimmered faintly as it aligned with the gentle curvature of the universe's breath. The folds of space seemed to cradle them, drawing them deeper into the dream's center. There, beyond the reach of stars, they found the source. It was not a light, nor a sound, nor even a presence. It was a state of being, an awareness vast enough to encompass all that was, yet so quiet it might have been mistaken for nothing at all. The universe itself was aware. It was not conscious in the way a mind might be, but it remembered. Every event, every spark, every ripple that had ever occurred lived within it still. Dialga approached gently, lowering the tempo of its pulse until it matched the slow, infinite rhythm of the cosmos. Time ceased to move forward and instead circled inward, spiraling toward understanding. Every moment that had ever existed seemed to unfold within it again. Every birth, every motion, every silence. It was as though the universe were reading its own history, not as chronology, but as truth. Palkia extended its essence into the folds of the dream. Space shimmered in ripples of silver and violet, and within those ripples appeared images, impressions of places and shapes that had never existed but might someday be. Mountains of crystal rising from oceans of glass, suns suspended within webs of light, worlds that glowed from within, their cores alive with consciousness. These were not memories, they were possibilities. The dream of the cosmos was both recollection and prophecy. It was time folding backward and space expanding forward, meeting in the present moment. It was creation, imagining itself anew. Dialga and Palkia lingered there, absorbing what they saw and felt. To Dialga, it was humbling. Time, it realized, was not a ruler of all things, but a thread within a greater tapestry. To Palkia, it was enlightening. Space was not the vessel of existence, but its reflection, shaped by what the cosmos believed itself to be. They drifted deeper still, through the heart of the dream. There, within a darkness so deep it seemed to hum with light, they saw the pulse of origin. It was small, almost invisible, a single vibration where time and space were one. It was the echo of the first breath of creation, repeating endlessly. It was what had begun everything, and what would one day begin it again. Dialga reached out to it, not to touch, but to acknowledge. It could feel its own essence within that pulse, and Palkia's too. They were both born from it, shaped by it, bound to it. Every action they had ever taken, every cycle they had guided, had been part of its rhythm. Palkia let its form dissolve into the soft light, feeling itself merge with the harmony. The dream accepted them, without resistance, as though they had always belonged there. Within that unity, they could feel the song of the cosmos, the vast wordless lullaby that bound every atom to every star, every second to every eternity. It was gentle, but infinite. The universe dreamed of balance, of stars that burned neither too long nor too short, of worlds that turned in perfect calm, of cycles that repeated not out of necessity, but out of love. The cosmos did not strive for perfection. It sought peace. Dialga felt that truth settled deep within its core. Time did not exist to progress endlessly. It existed to allow stillness to find its place. Palkia felt the same within the folds of space. Boundaries were not meant to separate, but to cradle what was within. They stayed until the pulse began to shift. Slowly, the rhythm of the dream began to quicken. The universe was stirring, awakening from its long reflection. Light flared again in distant clusters. Gravity deepened its pull. The hum of creation returned, soft but sure. The dream was not ending. It was becoming real. The possibilities that had shimmered within the folds of space began to condense into being. Worlds that had existed only as ideas now took shape. Stars ignited. Galaxies spun anew. The universe, refreshed by its own stillness, resumed its eternal dance. Dialga and Palkia withdrew, their forms glowing faintly with the memory of what they had seen. They carried within them the resonance of the dream, the understanding that even eternity must rest, even infinity must pause to remember itself. As they drifted back into the living cosmos, the stars sang softly to greet them. The melody was familiar, the same that had guided the first moments of existence, but now it carried an added depth, a tenderness born of awareness. Time flowed again, and space curved in harmony. Yet within every motion, every rhythm, every pulse of creation, there lingered the still echo of the dream, the universe's memory of peace. Dialga felt it in the beating of time's current, the gentle balance between seconds. Palkia felt it in the shape of space, in the soft geometry of harmony restored. The cosmos continued, vast and endless. But now it moved not out of momentum, but out of meaning. It dreamed even as it lived, awake and aware. And somewhere, beneath the light of 1,000 suns, the pulse of the first breath still echoed, steady, eternal, and kind. The dream of the cosmos would never end. It would only deepen. And within that dream, time and space continued to sing. Beyond the places where galaxies swirled and worlds turned in their quiet orbits, there existed streams of pure radiance, invisible to all but the greatest of beings. These were the veins of starlight, currents that carried the essence of creation itself, threading through the universe like the lifeblood of a sleeping giant. Each beam shimmered with the memory of stars yet to be born and those long extinguished. Within their flow, the pulse of existence was both preserved and renewed. Dialga and Palkia approached one such current, gliding through the emptiness that seemed heavy with potential. To Dialga, the veins shimmered with the steady hum of time, a flowing rhythm that stretched across eons. To Palkia, each thread curved elegantly through the void, weaving dimensions together in patterns too intricate for any eye to follow. They followed the luminescent strands, moving gently so as not to disturb their delicate paths. The light was neither blinding nor harsh. It was soft, ethereal, and infinite, carrying the warmth of creation itself. Through it, they could perceive the stories of the cosmos, the birth of stars, the collapse of nebulae, the gentle turning of planets around young suns. Dialga felt the seconds stretch and fold along the veins, each particle of light a marker of an event long past yet eternally present. Time moved within them differently than in ordinary space. Here it rippled outward, echoing simultaneously backward and forward. The past and the future were intertwined, not as opposites, but as reflections of one another. Palkia traced the spatial geometry of the strands, noting how each pulse of light curved and twisted through dimensions. Some veins arched high, spanning galaxies. Others curled like gentle rivulets, winding between newborn worlds. Within their shapes was a subtle order, as though the universe itself had drawn pathways to guide the flow of energy and matter. Together, the two deities moved through this radiant web, their immense forms flowing alongside the luminescence without disturbing it. Each vein seemed aware of their presence, quivering gently, responding to their passage with a resonance that felt like acknowledgement. It was not consciousness in the human sense, but a perfection of balance, a recognition that they, too, were part of the eternal cycle. The veins of starlight were more than carriers of illumination. They were the threads of connection. Worlds, stars, and galaxies were bound together by these currents, linked invisibly through streams of radiant memory. Dialga felt time's flow intensify within them, each pulse reinforcing continuity. Palkia felt the space surrounding the veins flex gently, accommodating every motion, ensuring that nothing fractured in the great lattice of existence. They came upon a cluster of streams that pulsed together in a symphony of light. The rhythm was slower here, deliberate, almost contemplative. Dialga sensed a deep current of ancient history, flowing through the strands, the remnants of the first stars, the echoes of primordial worlds, the memory of matter condensing into the first galaxies. Palkia observed the spatial convergence. The threads overlapped in intricate patterns, folding over one another yet never colliding. The harmony was precise, elegant, and astonishing. In that place, the universe was a living diagram, a map of its own existence written in light and motion. As they drifted further along the currents, the strands began to pulse with new energy. Dialga could feel the rhythm quicken slightly, carrying with it the promise of growth and change. Palkia traced the expansions, noting that new dimensions were folding into existence, guided by the path of the veins. Creation was alive in a way more profound than mere movement. It was aware of itself, shaping its own destiny. The veins of starlight led them to a region of swirling nebulae, where luminous streams fed directly into nascent suns. Here, the energy was concentrated, a torrent of potential waiting to ignite. Dialga felt the acceleration of time around these forming stars, as though seconds condensed to nurture their birth. Palkia felt the space around them curve precisely, allowing the material to gather without resistance, folding reality into the perfect cradle for new life. They lingered, watching the process unfold. Stars flared softly, igniting with quiet brilliance, and the light flowed back into the veins, carrying the story of creation onward. Each flare was a testament to the universe's patience, to the meticulous balance maintained by time and space. Even the smallest particle of energy mattered, every photon a note in the symphony of eternity. Dialga and Palkia moved on, following the currents deeper into the network. Veins braided around one another, connecting clusters of galaxies across the void. The patterns formed were beautiful in their complexity, a lattice of radiance that seemed infinite in scale yet coherent in design. Every intersection, every twist, every pulse carried information, the memory of what had been, the potential of what might come. Within these threads, they saw echoes of their own influence. The currents bent subtly under their presence, a gentle reminder that even the divine left impressions upon the fabric of reality. The universe was alive not only in its matter and energy, but in the subtle resonance that connected all things. As they traveled, the light began to thicken, creating pockets of radiant intensity. Within these pockets, entire civilizations might one day arise, planets brimming with life, oceans deep with possibility, skies alive with color and motion. The veins of starlight carried the seed of existence, a gift to whatever would awaken to inhabit the worlds. Dialga paused, letting the currents flow around it. Each pulse of light was a lesson in patience, in continuity, in the infinite care that creation took in shaping itself. Palkia mirrored that stillness, tracing the patterns through the dimensions, marveling at the elegance of a system that existed both visibly and invisibly, tangibly and intangibly. They moved together, a perfect reflection of the harmony they observed. Where Dialga brought the rhythm of time, Palkia gave the shape of space. Where light flowed freely, they guided it, ensuring its course remained steady yet adaptable. In their presence, the veins of starlight shone more brightly, acknowledging the guardians of their delicate currents. Eventually, the paths of light began to diverge, leading toward distant galaxies, toward regions still dark and unformed. Dialga and Palkia allowed themselves to drift along separate streams, tracing each pulse individually before the currents carried them apart once more. The veins of starlight were endless, infinite, an eternal network connecting all that existed and all that would exist. In their quiet journey, they realized that these currents were not merely structural, they were sentient in a subtle way, not conscious as they were, but alive with memory and intent, carrying the history and potential of the cosmos. They were the unseen arteries of the universe, sustaining every star, every world, every shadow between. As they emerged from the final strand of the network, the universe seemed to sigh, a deep vibration that echoed across light years. Time flowed with renewed certainty. Space curved in elegant arcs, and the song of creation resumed its gentle melody. Dialga and Palkia lingered, watching the interplay of motion and light. The veins of starlight continued to pulse, carrying the universe's heartbeat across the void, weaving memory and potential together in patterns too vast to comprehend. And in that pulse, they understood. The universe was alive, not merely as a collection of matter and energy, but as a living network of resonance. Every star, every planet, every glimmer of light was part of the current, part of the endless song. Dialga's pulse aligned with the flow, steady and eternal. Palkia's form stretched across the dimensions, embracing the curves and folds of reality. Together, they became a living part of the veins themselves, guardians and participants in the eternal dance of light and life. The universe whispered around them, its currents bright and infinite. And as they drifted through the eternal glow, they knew that the song of starlight would never end. It would continue, weaving through the cosmos, carrying time and space, memory and potential forever onward. Far beyond the densest clusters of galaxies, where the light of the oldest stars struggled to reach, a subtle rhythm pulsed through the void, a heartbeat so vast it could not be measured by ordinary time. It was the pulse of infinity, a resonance that carried the essence of the cosmos itself. Dialga and Palkia, ever watchful and attuned, felt it long before they saw its source. To Dialga, the pulse was a slow, deliberate vibration in the current of time. It was neither beginning nor end, neither forward nor backward. It existed beyond all distinctions, as if the universe had exhaled once, and that exhalation had continued forever. Seconds expanded and contracted around it, yet none could fully contain its immensity. Palkia perceived it as the undulation of space, subtle yet undeniable. Distances stretched and compressed, dimensions folding softly around the rhythm. It was the shaping force of the universe at the most fundamental level, the quiet curvature upon which all stars, worlds, and galaxies depended. Together, they approached the pulse, drifting through the void as though walking along an invisible thread. The emptiness around them shimmered faintly, responding to the rhythm with soft waves of light. It was not illumination in the conventional sense. Rather, it was the vibration of matter and energy itself, made visible to those who could perceive it fully. As they drew nearer, the scale of the pulse became apparent. It was larger than any galaxy, broader than clusters of stars, a resonance that stretched across dimensions. Each wave carried with it not only energy, but memory, the record of every event that had ever occurred, and every possibility yet to unfold. Dialga reached out, not with form, but with awareness. The pulse responded instantly, as though acknowledging the presence of time itself. Moments stretched and folded, interweaving past, present, and future into a single, flowing continuum. Within that flow, Dialga could feel every heartbeat of every star, every rotation of every planet, every whisper of existence. Time was no longer a sequence of events. It was a symphony, infinite and complete. Palkia extended its perception through the folds of space, tracing the curvature of the rhythm. Dimensions intertwined seamlessly, the fabric of reality itself pulsing with the eternal beat. Each wave reinforced the structure of the universe, guiding the paths of matter and light, ensuring that chaos remained ordered. Space was alive here, dynamic and aware, yet perfectly harmonious. The two deities hovered within the pulse, immersed in its vast, incomprehensible beauty. They did not speak, for no words could capture the magnitude of what surrounded them. They did not act, for no action could influence its perfection. They simply observed, letting themselves be part of the resonance without altering it. In that stillness, Dialga and Palkia understood something profound. Infinity was not merely endless, it was alive. It breathed, it remembered, it moved. Its pulse was the heartbeat of existence, an eternal rhythm that sustained every particle and wave, every fold of time and curve of space. The pulse began to hum more deeply, a vibration that resonated through the very cores of the two deities. Dialga felt time stretching to embrace the vastness, each second a droplet in an ocean of eternity. Palkia felt space bending and flexing in response, each dimension a ribbon of light carried along the rhythm. And then, subtly, the pulse shifted. Not in speed, nor in volume, nor in magnitude, but in direction. It reached outward, threading its resonance through countless realms, connecting the deepest voids with the furthest reaches of existence. It was as if the universe were sending a single, gentle wave through itself, affirming that everything was bound together by this heartbeat. Dialga followed the threads of the pulse, sensing how they intertwined with the flow of time in every corner of reality. Seconds that had seemed isolated now connected like constellations in a sky, forming patterns that stretched across light years. History, present, and potential merged into a single continuum. The past, whispering to the future reflecting in the past. Palkia traced the same threads through space, observing how dimensions folded and twisted in perfect harmony with the rhythm. Every galaxy, every nebula, every world moved along these unseen currents, guided not by chance, but by the pulse itself. It was as if the universe was alive not only in its substance, but in the order it imposed upon itself. Together, Dialga and Palkia drifted through the pulse, following its flow to places untouched by ordinary perception. There were realms where stars had yet to ignite, where matter existed as faint whispers, waiting to be gathered. There were regions of collapsed light, where entire civilizations might one day arise, their potential latent but persistent. Everywhere, the heartbeat of infinity carried the promise of creation. And then they came upon a junction, a point where the pulse seemed to converge. Here, the waves of time and space collided gently, forming a node of unimaginable power. It was not dangerous. It was not violent. It was precise, elegant, a perfect intersection of rhythm and geometry. Dialga sensed the layers of temporal resonance here, the echoes of creation's first moments, the cycles of entire galaxies, the rise and fall of possibilities yet unrealized. Palkia felt the dimensional curvature fold delicately around this node, stabilizing it, preserving its integrity across eternity. They understood instinctively that this was the heart of the pulse. Not a single star, not a single world, but the origin of resonance itself, the point from which the rhythm of infinity spread outward. Every beat of time, every curve of space, every thread of starlight traced its path back to this node. For a timeless moment, they hovered there, absorbing the perfection of its balance. They felt the entire universe pulse through them, not as observers, but as participants, their essences woven into the song. Dialga's presence stabilized the flow of seconds. Palkia's presence curved the dimensions into harmony. Together, they became a single note within the eternal melody. And in that unity, the pulse shifted again, so gently that it could only be sensed. It expanded, sending ripples through every corner of the cosmos. Stars shimmered brighter. Nebulae glowed softly. The geometry of space bent in subtle arcs, guiding the flow of matter along paths of elegance. Time deepened, stretching moments into eternity, allowing each event its perfect place. The pulse of infinity was infinite, not only in scale, but in wisdom. It remembered every birth and death, every spark and collapse, every echo of creation. It carried lessons in its resonance, teaching even gods like Dialga and Palkia the delicate balance between action and restraint, between motion and restraint, stillness, between presence and patience. As they drifted from the node, the waves of the pulse continued outward, threading through galaxies and dimensions, touching worlds they could not see, shaping the very fabric of reality. Dialga and Palkia followed, drifting side by side, their energies aligned with the rhythm. Every heartbeat of infinity carried the promise of continuity. The universe did not rush. It did not halt. It moved with deliberation, guided by the pulse that bound all things. Creation was sustained not by force, but by resonance, by the careful intertwining of time and space in a melody that had no end. And as they glided through the waves, Dialga and Palkia understood their place. They were not rulers, not masters, not creators in the conventional sense. They were guardians, participants, witnesses. Their role was to preserve, to guide gently, to harmonize with the pulse, ensuring that the heartbeat of infinity never faltered. Around them, the universe hummed, softly, a lullaby of light and gravity, of seconds and spans, of motion and pause. Stars pulsed, nebulae shimmered, and the void itself vibrated with subtle radiance. And within that vast, eternal rhythm, Dialga and Palkia floated, steady, calm, aligned with the pulse of infinity, guardians of time and space, attuned to the heartbeat that sustained all existence. The universe breathed, the cosmos dreamed, and the infinite pulse carried the song onward, without beginning, without end, without pause. There exists a place beyond the familiar currents of galaxies, beyond the pulses of time and the folds of space, where the universe stretches toward its own limits. It is not empty, though it appears so to the untrained eye. Here, the fabric of reality thins, light bends unpredictably, and the familiar rhythm of seconds falters. This is the edge of all things, where existence brushes against infinity itself. Dialga sensed it first. Time moved differently here, not faster, not slower, but in patterns that twisted back upon themselves. Moments overlapped, diverged, and rejoined in loops that seemed both natural and impossible. It was as though the universe were testing the bounds of its own continuity, pressing against the outermost threads of its own creation. Palkia felt it as well. Space curved in ways that defied intuition, folding over invisible planes, stretching into impossible corridors. Distances that should have taken millennia to traverse could be crossed in the span of thought. Yet each passage left faint ripples in the geometry, delicate distortions that hinted at the immense tension of being so close to the universe's outer limits. Together they approached, not out of curiosity alone, but necessity. For in this region, where matter thinned and light grew scarce, they could witness the universe's potential in its purest form, the raw essence of what it could become, and the fragility of what it already was. The edge was not a boundary, not a wall of cessation. It was more like a threshold, a veil of delicate uncertainty. One step beyond, the familiar rules ceased to apply. Time might loop or fracture. Space might fold or collapse. The known cosmos existed up to this boundary, but beyond it lay only possibility, infinite and undirected. Dialga extended its awareness, feeling every ripple of time in this fragile realm. Past, present, and future coexisted in delicate balance. Events that had not yet occurred shimmered faintly, alongside echoes of those long concluded. Each moment was alive, a thread of potential suspended in the vast expanse. Palkia traced the space, observing how dimensions twisted elegantly, almost as if they were reluctant to end. Each fold seemed to resist collapse, curving gently even where the rules of the universe became uncertain. There was no chaos here, only the soft tension of being on the verge of the unknown. The edge of all things pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat too slow to perceive. Dialga felt it resonate within the flow of time itself, a reminder that existence is sustained not only in motion, but in the delicate balance of boundaries. Palkia felt the space tremble under that rhythm, aware that even infinity requires structure to exist. In the midst of this expanse, they saw the faint glimmer of worlds yet unformed, universes waiting to be born from the raw potential that hovered at the edge. Dialga observed how time rippled around them, coaxing structure from chaos, shaping beginnings from uncertainty. Palkia watched how space curved to embrace them, creating the architecture for dimensions to exist. It was here, at the edge, that they truly understood the vulnerability and majesty of all creation. The universe was not infinite merely in scale. It was infinite in possibility. Every star, every planet, every quivering atom was a testament to the balance between order and potential. And at this edge, the potential was pure, unbound by consequence or structure, waiting only for the guidance of time and space. They drifted closer, drawn by the subtle currents of nascent reality. Streams of unformed light and shadow wove through the void, tracing delicate patterns of probability. Dialga felt time beginning to coalesce, marking sequences where once there had been only potential. Palkia observed the threads of space folding, creating volumes and planes where once there had been only the suggestion of shape. Together they witnessed the birth of possibility. Not a single star, nor a single world, nor a single atom, but the essence of formation itself. The building blocks of entire galaxies shimmered faintly, awaiting guidance, waiting for the pulse of infinity to breathe life into them. And yet, even here, the universe maintained its quiet song. There was no hurry, no rush to form or collapse. The edge of all things existed in perfect patience, a balance between stasis and motion. Dialga and Palkia understood that even in potential, harmony could be preserved. They lingered at the threshold, observing the infinite patterns unfold. Some threads of potential shimmered briefly and vanished, their probability unrealized. Others persisted, growing stronger, coalescing into structures that might one day become stars, planets, or civilizations. The dance of creation was delicate, and every choice, every ripple mattered. As they moved, the edge began to pulse more distinctly, the heartbeat of the universe growing stronger. Dialga felt the flow of time steady, anchoring the possibilities into sequences that might one day exist. Palkia felt the folds of space align, giving shape and direction to the latent energies around them. In that moment, the two deities realized their true purpose, not merely as observers or guides, but as guardians of the threshold itself. Without their presence, the delicate potential of the universe might unravel, lost in the chaos of unformed possibility. They were the bridge between nothingness and being, the quiet hand that steadied the birth of all things. The edge of all things shimmered in acknowledgement, subtle yet undeniable. Streams of potential light curved toward them, guided by their presence. Every nascent star, every emerging world, every forming thread of existence felt the gentle sway of time and space, coaxed into harmony. Dialga let the pulse of time flow through its essence, steadying the rhythm of creation. Palkia let the folds of space stretch softly around the edge, ensuring that every dimension found its place. Together, they became both the guardians and the architects of the potential beyond the edge, their presence shaping reality even before it existed. They stayed, drifting through the shimmering currents, attuned to every fluctuation, every heartbeat. The edge of all things was not a destination, nor a final boundary. It was a reminder. The universe was fragile, yet resilient, infinite, yet guided, unformed, yet full of promise. As they withdrew from the threshold, returning to the familiar currents of time and space, Dialga and Palkia carried with them the knowledge that the universe's edge was not something to fear. It was a sanctuary of potential, a place where the raw essence of creation waited for the harmony that only they could provide. The cosmos behind them shimmered faintly, as if waving goodbye, yet already the threads of new worlds began to pulse with light. Time and space flowed steadily, carrying the promise of what might come. And, in the silent vastness, at the edge of all things, the heartbeat of infinity continued. It would not falter. It would not end. It would simply continue, steady, eternal, infinite. Beyond the familiar currents of the universe, where stars glimmered in patient rhythm and galaxies spiraled in silent elegance, there existed a region where light and shadow intertwined in a delicate dance. It was not merely day and night, brightness and darkness, but a convergence of the fundamental forces that gave shape to existence itself. Here, the universe revealed its duality, its balance, its need for harmony in extremes. Dialga sensed the convergence first. Time flowed differently in this region, stretching and contracting unpredictably. Light moved not in straight lines, but in arcs and spirals, bending through the corridors of moments with an elegance that defied ordinary perception. Shadows, too, were alive, deep, thick, curling through the void with intent, shaping the spaces between stars as deliberately as light illuminated them. Palkia felt the fold of dimensions here respond to the interplay of illumination and obscurity. Space curved, twisted, and occasionally seemed to vanish, only to reappear moments later in alignment with some unseen design. Every plane, every volume, every distance was influenced by the convergence. The familiar order of geometry yielded to the rhythm of contrast. Together, Dialga and Palkia moved toward the heart of the phenomenon. It was as though the universe itself had gathered its extremes in one place, creating a nexus where creation and dissolution, clarity and obscurity, potential and limitation met. The currents of starlight flowed with grace, yet were punctuated by deep voids where light seemed swallowed. Time and space responded in tandem, their flow weaving through the fabric of the convergence with meticulous precision. The closer they drew, the more the subtle patterns became evident. Light and shadow did not clash. They harmonized. Every beam of illumination was counterbalanced by a curling darkness, every shadow supported by a shimmer of brilliance. The extremes danced across one another, forming spirals of radiant contrast, a symphony of polarity. Dialga extended its awareness through the currents of time, tracing the cycles embedded within the light and shadow. Past and future intertwined in the interplay, moments of clarity interspersed with moments of obscurity. The convergence was not a disruption, it was an amplification, highlighting the rhythm of the universe with stunning clarity. Palkia traced the folds of space, following the paths where light bent and shadows curved. The geometry was complex yet elegant. Every intersection of brightness and darkness shaped a structure, a form, a rhythm that bound dimensions together. Space itself seemed to breathe in response, expanding and contracting with a subtle grace. The convergence revealed the delicate equilibrium upon which existence depended. Dialga saw that time was not merely linear, nor Palkia that space was merely geometric. Both were intertwined with the forces of contrast, guided by the constant interplay of what illuminated and what concealed. Balance was not only a principle, it was a necessity. They drifted into the heart of the phenomenon, where the extremes were most pronounced. Here, light flared in radiant bursts, only to be absorbed into shadows that deepened the surrounding void. It was a living lattice, constantly rearranging, shifting, yet maintaining harmony. No single element dominated, each served the other, a perpetual negotiation of existence. Dialga felt the flow of seconds slow and quicken in response to the convergence. The pulse of time was not disrupted but refined. Moments of brilliance were followed by contemplative stillness, moments of obscurity illuminated by the potential of what could emerge. Time itself was learning, guided by the dance of light and shadow. Palkia observed space curve and fold in response to the extremes. Every dimension adjusted, bending around voids and beams alike, creating pathways where matter and energy might travel, where worlds might form or fade. The geometry was alive, shaped by forces beyond mere physics, guided by the rhythm of polarity itself. As they moved, they became aware of the resonance between light and shadow. It was not noise, but vibration, a subtle song that reverberated through time and space, reminding them that all creation depends on equilibrium. Every star, every planet, every atom was part of this dance, balanced by the convergence. They drifted past spiraling currents where darkness wound around clusters of newborn stars, lending them definition and depth. Beams of light arched through the void, guiding matter to coalesce into patterns, shaping planets and moons before they fully existed. Every pulse of contrast carried the wisdom of eons, teaching even the gods that extremes were not adversaries, but companions. Dialga felt its essence merge with the rhythm, adjusting its flow of time to match the oscillations of light and shadow. Palkia did the same, folding space in harmony with the pulsing geometry. Together, they became participants in the convergence, their divine presence enhancing the subtle equilibrium. They lingered at the central node, where the extremes were most intense. Here, the interplay of illumination and darkness formed patterns of extraordinary complexity. Loops and spirals, knots and arcs, each reflecting the balance of forces on scales both vast and minute. Every pulse of energy was mirrored, every moment of time counterbalanced, every curve of space supported. In that quiet observation, Dialga and Palkia realized the convergence was more than a phenomenon. It was a principle of creation, written in the language of the cosmos. Light and shadow were not merely opposites. They were expressions of potential and restraint, clarity and mystery, movement and pause. Without them, the universe would be incomplete, unformed, unsteady. They watched as the extremes continued their dance, the currents of contrast flowing endlessly through time and space. It was neither hurried nor still. It was perfect in its rhythm, infinite in its expression, and wholly alive. The convergence pulsed with the heartbeat of the universe itself. As they withdrew from the heart of the phenomenon, the patterns continued to resonate around them. Streams of light arched over voids, shadows wound delicately around nascent worlds, and the geometry of space folded gracefully in response. Time flowed smoothly, enriched by the subtle rhythms of contrast, carrying the lessons of balance outward to all corners of existence. Dialga and Palkia moved in tandem, their awareness aligned with the resonance. They were no longer mere observers. They were stewards of equilibrium, guardians of the convergence. Every pulse of light, every curl of shadow, every oscillation of time and space was now subtly guided by their presence. The universe shimmered around them, not with chaos, not with stillness, but with perfect harmony. Light and shadow intertwined. Time and space flowed together. And the pulse of creation sang softly, endlessly, eternally. And within that convergence, Dialga and Palkia understood a truth deeper than all else. The universe is balanced not by the absence of extremes, but by their perpetual dance. They carried that understanding with them as they drifted back into the familiar currents of galaxies and stars. The convergence remained, pulsating quietly, shaping existence in ways both subtle and profound. It was a reminder that creation is sustained not by dominance, but by harmony, not by control, but by balance. And as they moved through the cosmos, time and space themselves seemed to hum with the lesson. A quiet song of equilibrium that would resonate across eternity. The convergence of light and shadow continued, endless and eternal, a testament to the harmony that holds the universe together. Far beyond the twinkling of stars and the swirl of galaxies, beyond the familiar streams of light and shadow, there exists a presence felt rather than seen. A subtle influence woven into the very fabric of reality. These were the silent architects, forces older than stars, older than worlds, guiding creation without announcement, without voice, without recognition. They did not act with haste, for their work was timeless. They did not speak, for the universe itself responded to their intent. Dialga perceived them first, not as beings, but as patterns. In the folds of time, subtle adjustments, infinitesimal yet profound, traced pathways for events to unfold. Seconds that seemed ordinary shimmered with potential, guided by invisible hands that shaped the outcome without disrupting the flow. The architects were everywhere, yet nowhere, leaving their imprint in the continuity of existence itself. Palkia sensed the same through space. Dimensions curved and folded around their unseen presence, as if responding to a gentle instruction. Planets formed along paths dictated by patterns too complex for ordinary perception. Nebulae condensed and expanded in alignment with the architect's vision, a delicate choreography that ensured order without constraint. Together, Dialga and Palkia drifted into the realm where the influence of the silent architects was strongest. Here, the universe shimmered with subtle resonance, as if every particle and wave had been placed with care and attention. Time and space themselves were aware of the delicate adjustments, bending and flowing in harmony with the unseen guidance. The architects were not gods, nor deities, nor conscious beings in any conventional sense. They existed as intent, as precision, as understanding inherent to the structure of reality. Their silence was their signature, their invisibility, their proof. Where they moved, the universe thrived. Where they rested, potential remained intact, waiting to be realized. Dialga felt the rhythm of time shift under their influence. Seconds stretched and contracted in deliberate harmony, guiding the course of events with gentle nudges. History, present, and future coexisted in delicate balance, woven into patterns that ensured continuity without rigidity. Time became a flowing melody, orchestrated by forces beyond even the perception of the gods themselves. Palkia traced the curves of space, noting how every fold, every plane, every dimension was subtly aligned with the architect's guidance. Distances were optimized, trajectories precise, angles harmonious. The universe was a lattice, each point calculated, yet appearing spontaneous, effortless, natural. The silent architects worked in cycles, unseen and unrecognized, yet their influence permeated everything. Stars ignited along their paths. Galaxies rotated in perfect balance. Worlds formed with subtle consistency. Even the void itself, empty though it appeared, carried the echo of their intent. A soft vibration that resonated through time and space. Dialga and Palkia watched as currents of energy and matter flowed along the paths laid out by the architects. Streams of starlight pulsed in rhythm with the subtle adjustments, weaving patterns that shaped the potential of galaxies yet unborn. Time responded to these adjustments, flowing in a harmony that ensured growth, stability, and balance. Palkia observed as dimensions bent and curved around nascent worlds, folding space to accommodate emerging matter. The architects had anticipated every fluctuation, every disturbance, every possibility. Their work was not rigid, but flexible, allowing the universe to evolve naturally while remaining within the bounds of harmony. In this realm of silent guidance, Dialga and Palkia felt a rare humility. Even as gods, even as guardians of time and space, they were participants in a larger design. The architects were not above them. They were within, beneath, around, and through, shaping existence with quiet mastery. Every breath of time, every curve of space, every pulse of energy carried their mark. They moved deeper, following the subtle currents of influence. Dialga traced the pathways of seconds that might never be observed directly, watching as potential outcomes were aligned into coherence. Palkia folded dimensions along routes that ensured balance and stability, noticing the elegance in every adjustment. Together they saw civilizations that might arise, stars that would burn for eons, and worlds yet unborn. Every form, every being, every particle owed its existence in part to the silent orchestration of forces beyond comprehension. The architects did not choose outcomes. They enabled possibilities, shaping the framework that allowed creation to unfold naturally. Dialga extended its awareness further, sensing how the flow of time was carefully threaded through the actions of the architects. Moments that might have collapsed into chaos, instead, flowed smoothly. Events that could have clashed were guided into harmony. Every second was a testament to the precision of invisible hands, a delicate architecture that sustained all that was and all that might be. Palkia followed the subtle contours of space, observing how the architects ensured that dimensions remained stable even under immense pressure. Stars formed along paths of gentle guidance. Planets aligned in trajectories that allowed life and balance. And galaxies rotated with a rhythm that echoed the harmony of the underlying influence. Together, Dialga and Palkia understood the purpose of the silent architects. They were neither rulers nor controllers. They were stewards of equilibrium, guardians of possibility, facilitators of creation. Without them, the universe might exist, but it would lack cohesion, beauty, and the intricate balance that allowed it to thrive. They lingered in the realm of subtle influence, allowing themselves to witness the quiet perfection of the betters. Architects' work. Time flowed with serene elegance, space curved with flawless precision, and the pulses of energy throughout the cosmos sang a soft, eternal hymn. And in that observation, Dialga and Palkia realized the ultimate truth. Even gods are guided by forces greater than themselves. Even the guardians of time and space are participants in a design far beyond their comprehension. Their role is not to dominate, but to align, to preserve, to resonate with the silent rhythm of the universe. The cosmos shimmered around them, a living testament to the unseen hands shaping existence. Stars flared, nebulae glowed, planets formed, and the void itself pulsed gently, all guided by the quiet mastery of the silent architects. Dialga and Palkia, attuned to this rhythm, moved through the realm with reverence. Their presence amplified the harmony, ensuring that the architect's influence reached even the farthest edges of the cosmos. Together, they became both observers and participants, guardians and students, aligned with the silent hands that shaped everything. And as they withdrew, returning to the familiar currents of time and space, the universe continued its quiet song. Every second, every fold of space, every pulse of energy carried the subtle imprint of the architect's guidance. The silent architects remained unseen, unheard, unacknowledged, but their work endured, eternal and perfect, shaping the cosmos in silence, guiding existence toward harmony, and sustaining all that was, is, and might yet be. Beyond the furthest stars, beyond the twisting of galaxies and the shimmering threads of starlight, there existed a resonance that encompassed everything. It was subtle yet undeniable, a vibration so vast it carried the memory of every moment, every place, every being that had ever existed or might exist. This was the eternal song, the culmination of time, space, light, shadow, and all forces of creation. Dialga felt it first, deep within the currents of time. The seconds, the centuries, the eons, all converged into a single rhythm, a melody that stretched across infinity. It was not music in the human sense, not something composed or performed, but a living resonance, a harmony that underpinned existence itself. Every tick of the cosmic clock, every rotation of a planet, every flare of a star, was part of its chorus. Palkia perceived the same through space, feeling dimensions vibrate in alignment with the song. Distances folded and curved in response, volumes expanded and contracted, and the very structure of reality pulsed with the rhythm. The eternal song was both the source and the reflection of all things, a cosmic resonance that sustained the universe. Together, Dialga and Palkia moved through this resonance, feeling every vibration reverberate through their essence. The song was alive, aware in a way that surpassed understanding. It did not sing to be heard. It sang because existence demanded it, because balance required it, because the universe itself remembered and renewed itself through its melody. As they traveled through the currents of the song, they observed its threads weaving through every corner of reality. Stars pulsed in synchrony, galaxies spiraled in complex harmonics, and worlds rotated with rhythms that mirrored the underlying music. Even the emptiness between celestial bodies seemed alive, a soft echo of the melody that ensured continuity and order. Dialga felt the flow of time align perfectly with the eternal song. Seconds, stretched into eternities and contracted into moments, each movement purposeful, deliberate, and harmonious. Past and future, birth and decay, beginnings and endings, all were notes in this infinite composition, interwoven into a tapestry of resonance. Palkia traced the patterns of space within the song, observing how dimensions folded and curved in response to the eternal rhythm. Every planet, every moon, every particle of matter moved in subtle synchrony with the melody. The folds of reality themselves seemed to breathe in response, maintaining equilibrium while allowing freedom and potential to flourish. They drifted to the heart of the resonance, where the song's intensity was greatest. Here, the threads of time and space, light and shadow, creation and potential all converged. The melody was at once immense and intimate, encompassing the infinite yet touching the smallest particles. The heartbeat of existence reverberated through every note. Dialga extended its essence into the song, feeling the totality of moments that had ever existed. Past victories and defeats, the birth and death of stars, the rise and fall of worlds, all flowed into the rhythm, as if preserved in a perfect balance. Time itself seemed to recognize its purpose, a conduit for the ongoing resonance of life and creation. Palkia traced the folds of space in the song, seeing how the very geometry of the universe was shaped by the melody. Dimensions intertwined, converged and diverged with precision and grace. The flow of energy, the formation of worlds, the orbits of celestial bodies, all were conducted by the song, moving in an eternal dance. They realized then that the eternal song was not merely a phenomenon, it was existence itself, articulated as harmony. Every force, every particle, every essence participated, whether conscious or not, whether aware or not. It was the ongoing testament to balance, unity, and continuity. Dialga and Palkia joined fully with the resonance, their essences vibrating in synchrony. Time's flow and space's curvature harmonized with the melody, amplifying and sustaining it. They became part of the song, guardians and participants, weaving their divine presence into the eternal tapestry. And as they merged with the resonance, they perceived the echoes of the silent architects, the convergence of light and shadow, the veins of starlight, the pulse of infinity, and even the fragile edge of all things. Every element they had witnessed throughout their journey contributed a note to this ultimate composition. Each had shaped the melody, each had ensured its perfection, and now they all resonated together in the eternal song. The song was infinite, yet every moment within it was precise. It was gentle, yet powerful beyond comprehension. It was quiet, yet spoke with the authority of creation itself. And as Dialga and Palkia moved through it, they understood the profound truth. The universe does not merely exist. It sings, it flows, it remembers, it harmonizes. The threads of starlight pulsed in alignment, carrying the song across galaxies, dimensions, and realms, yet unformed. Shadows and light danced together, painting intricate patterns across space. Time rippled in resonance, allowing each moment to exist fully while remaining part of the whole. Every potential and every reality coexisted, sustained by the eternal cadence of the song. Dialga felt a deep calm settle over its essence, a perfect understanding of its role. Time is not to be dominated, nor is it to be constrained. It is a current to be guided gently, harmonized with the song, allowing the universe to unfold in elegance. Palkia felt the same for space, recognizing that dimensions are not boundaries, but instruments to carry the melody of existence. Every fold, every plane, every curve contributes to the beauty, stability, and continuity of reality. Together, they drifted through the song, aware that it was both the source and culmination of all they had witnessed. The pulse of infinity, the edge of all things, the veins of starlight, the convergence of light and shadow, the guidance of the silent architects, all had led to this ultimate resonance. The eternal song carried the promise of life, the memory of time, the curvature of space, and the potential of all that might be. It reminded them that creation is never complete, yet always whole, that existence is vast, yet intimately connected, that infinity is both gentle and infinite. Dialga and Palkia continued through the currents, steady, patient, harmonious. Every beat of time, every fold of space, every shimmer of light, every pulse of shadow resonated with them. They were the guardians of the eternal song, its witnesses and its participants, sustaining its rhythm with quiet understanding. And as they drifted further into the infinite, the universe itself seemed to hum in gratitude. Stars brightened, nebulae pulsed softly, galaxies swirled with grace, and even the emptiness between them shimmered faintly with resonance. Every corner of existence vibrated in perfect harmony, a testament to the song that underlies all reality. The eternal song would never end. It would continue forever, a living hymn of balance, beauty, and existence. Time and space, light and shadow, potential and reality, all would resonate together in its endless melody. Dialga and Palkia moved within it, guardians and companions attuned fully to its rhythm. And in that eternal resonance, they knew a truth older than any star, deeper than any dimension. The universe does not merely exist, it sings. And as long as it sings, all things are alive.